Good evening, welcome to Leicester Fan TV. It is Monday night, it's just about 7:30. If you're watching live, thanks for joining us. If you're watching this on playback on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching it, thanks for joining us on the playback view as well tonight. We are joined by former Leicester City player James Scowcroft. Joined us in around 2001. Get your views in, get your questions in. What would you like to ask him? Anything you'd like to ask him tonight, get your views in, get your comments in. This is your Leicester City Fan Zone show. Yes, as ever, I can get your comments on screen if you'd like to ask James anything. Sean is watching. Good evening to you. David Gavin is watching all the way in Ireland, in Sligo Town. Never know if I say that right, David. Get my pronunciation right. Pete, good evening to you. Pete Hides is watching, as is Imtiaz. Hope you're well, Imtiaz, keeping safe. Mark Gatwood and Michael Geddes. Loads of people's Adam Green as well. Good evening to you as well. Get your views in, get your comments in, and I can pose them towards James. And let's bring in Jamie from the Fox's Arms. Good afternoon, Jamie.
Good evening. It's evening here, Phil. I know I'm an hour ahead, but it's just evening now.
Well, it's still sunny here in Leicestershire, so come on, Jamie.
It's been all right today. It's not been too bad. Anyway, James Scowcroft. He came from Ipswich in August of 01. Peter Taylor signed him for $3 million. He was the third signing of that season with Ian Walker and Dennis Wise. We'll scoot over that one quickly. And then he was here for 4 years. He went to Ipswich on loan in the February, and then he sold into Coventry in the July of 05. He played 147 games and he scored 28 goals. So I think we better get him on and start asking him some questions.
Let's bring James Scowcroft in. Good afternoon to you. How are you?
Good evening. I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good, apart from I think it's the afternoon for some reason, and everybody else thinks it's the evening. But yeah, good. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, James. It's a pleasure to have you on. Jamie, do you want to fire away with the first question?
Yeah, I'll get the first one out of the bag. When you joined us, how did Peter Taylor get you persuade you to leave Ipswich to come to Leicester?
Good question, really. I've been at Ipswich a long time. I joined since I was a kid. Actually, I was, from a very, very young age. And at Ipswich, we had a really good side when I left as well. We just qualified for Europe. I think we finished fifth in the Premier League. So, but I was at an age where I thought it was time to move on, and I had a few offers. And I'd worked with Peter before. Quite liked working with him before, and I liked Leicester as a club as well. I thought Leicester was, it was a really good established football club at the time in the Premier League. And I knew a couple of the players there. And it just felt right to join.
So it didn't take you much time. Was it a quick decision, or did you have to think about it?
No, well, it would sort of gone on a little bit, and there was a lot of, like every summer, a lot of sort of transfer rumours and news, and might happen, could happen, and this, that, and the other. So I first got wind of it in January. Actually, it nearly sort of happened in the January that season, but it didn't. But then in the summer, it started to pick up again, and ultimately the decision was mine to leave. And I came back pre-season. I think it was probably halfway through pre-season that I said yes. Let's go.
Because you've been at Ipswich since 1994, hadn't you? So you'd been there. Was that? I mean, it was the first professional club for you, James? Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'd actually joined probably about 87, 88 as a schoolboy, and left school in 92, joined them. So I signed my first professional in 94 with them, but I'd been there probably 5 years before that. Listen, Ipswich was a fantastic club at the time. We'd got promoted, we'd then just qualified for Europe, we had a very good team. But players move on, that's it happens at every club. It's players and managers are the one commodity that come and go at football club, and it was my time to move on.
Yeah, I brought Tom in. Tom, have you got a question?
Yeah, I was going to say we've had quite a few players from that era come on, but there's one question I haven't asked any of them. What was it like to play and have Robbie Savage as a teammate at the football club? Because as a fan, when he was at the club, we loved him for his work rate and what he did. He was a pest. When he left, as typical, nobody wanted to, liked him. But what was he like as a teammate and to be on a pitch with him?
Robbie was brilliant. Robbie was. I got close to Robbie. I roomed with him in my first season. I bought his house off him.
That's pretty close.
Yeah,
That's close enough.
He probably ripped me off a little bit. So he was brilliant. He was an excellent character on and off the pitch. And what he did do, probably only a couple of players that I've seen it. He gave everything. He did literally everything on the pitch. He was one that you love to have in your corner. He'd wind people up. I saw him cause no end of problems on a pitch in and around the training ground. He's so opinionated, but he was a really good lad, and he was a very good player. Actually, probably didn't actually get the credit he probably deserved for being a good player.
I've got a question here from Brad Lingard. He says, while you were at Leicester, James, you did play under a few managers. Can you remember all the managers you played under? But his question is, who was the best manager you played under?
Good question. It came under Peter Taylor. Peter didn't last long. I knew he was under pressure when I joined, so I think he went probably in October. Dave Bassett came in. Dave was very experienced, tried to get the team organised, and then Mickey came along. Mickey Adams was my main manager, actually, so probably had, out of the just under 4 years I was at the club, probably Mickey was manager for maybe 3 of those. And then I had Craig Levine a little bit just at the end, really, but I didn't play that much football. And I actually quite liked Craig. I thought he was very well organised. So I'd probably have to say Mickey, because Mickey was the main player manager I played under, really. So it'd be unfair to mention anybody else. Yeah, Jamie?
I'm just going to say, Ross has just put a comment up. Who was the one player you wouldn't mess with down a dark alley? I think he's trying to ask who was the toughest player at Leicester at the time.
There was a few, actually. There was a few. It was quite an old team when I joined. It was, you could see that the club was going from transition from the Martin O'Neill age. So listen, you had people there that, you look at Jerry Taggart. Jerry would run for a brick wall. Matt Elliott was another one. Paul Dickoff might not have been 6'3", but he was another one that would, white his corner any day of the week. So I'd probably say Tags. Jerry was probably the hardest player there at the time. But there was a few of them. There was they could be physical when they needed to be.
It was a mixture of team. It certainly was in transition, wasn't it, Tom?
Oh, massively. And you talk about the transition, sadly after the first season, we got relegated to the old Division 1 at the time. But, it probably rebuilt the club with the takeover, the administration. That couldn't have been an easy point for yourself, being at a football club just over 12 months. What was it like to be around the team with the administration and all that? But also 2 players that came into that team were Billy McKee and Nicky Summerby, I think they're the ones who came in and played for free for 3 months.
Yeah.
2 players that don't really get a mention that much in the teams, but they were very good quality players to bring in at the time.
Yeah, they were. It was my first, probably longer, 15 months at the club it was a roller coaster ride. And I'd come from a club that was very, very calm, very, really well organised behind the scenes. And there was lots going on at Leicester. Obviously, relegation is one that's always tough to handle. There was the change from the old ground to the new ground, which doesn't always go to plan, but I thought at Leicester it did. I think Leicester's the one club where moving to a new ground, it's so many clubs I see that probably never really are the same, and it takes them a long time to. I don't think that happened at Leicester. I thought the Walker Stadium was brilliant for the club, but that turned round, and we soon. One of the reasons I joined Leicester was because it always had good support, always had fantastic away support, and that appealed to me because I knew that the club had a support base behind it, that whatever happened would see the club through. And I remember the first season in the Walker Stadium, we got back promoted, which we should have done because we had the side to do it. But you get 28,000-30,000 every week, and that just shows you the how big the club was. The club surprised me actually how big it was. But eventually, like you say, we went into administration. We were one of the first clubs to go into it, so nobody really knew what was going to happen, and there's loads of rumours. But I think you make a good point. I think actually that transition needed to happen, and Peter Taylor lost his job, but I think any manager managing that club at the time would have struggled to take over from Martin O'Neill. He was taking over an old team that needed reinventing a little bit. But eventually we turned it round, and we got back into the Premier League, and we should have stayed there actually with the quality we had in the squad. We shouldn't have gone down.
I've got a couple of questions here from a couple of fans for you, James. Mark Harrison says, what was your favourite moment at our club? And Mirko, who's watching in Holland, says, what was the highlight in your Leicester time? So can you pick out a particular highlight, a memory during your time at Leicester?
There's quite a few, actually. People say this throughout my career. What was the one? I don't really have a one, that moment in time. What I would say is maybe a period of time of that first season going into the Walker Stadium, hitting the ground running. You know, I remember the Watford game at home. It was sold out. The atmosphere was brilliant. You know, winning that game as well. And then slowly, you know, we needed a good start. We got it. So I loved that promotion season back then. That was great. I enjoyed the Premier League season as well when you know, we came down and should have done a little bit better, really. So I would say that sort of 12-month spell of the first season in the Walkers, getting promoted, and the first part of the Premier League, that sort of 8 months was brilliant. You know, it's really, really enjoyable, and you know, I settled in quite well.
Yeah, Tom?
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, the promotion season back to the Premier League was a brilliant season. There were some highlights in there. The win at Coventry you scored in. Billy McKee scored a stunning goal that game. But a standout game for me was travelling to Grimsby Town on a cold, wet Saturday, I think it was October, November time. Frank Sinclair got sent off for 2 yellow cards for having a go at the referee. And then a moment of genius by Muzzy. How good a player and to play with Muzzy was he on a pitch?
Yeah, Muzzy was brilliant. You know, Muzzy was a very good Premier League footballer. So playing in that league, it was too easy for him. You know, that goal, that was right behind that cross, which obviously that goal gets shown a lot at Grimsby. But I actually got the first goal that never ever gets shown. So
well, we need to look that up and play it tomorrow for you, James.
It's not a classic, but I sometimes I'll show all the goals. But
yeah.
Muzzy was a standout player. You know, he was brilliant. He was, you know, he loved Leicester as well. A good pro as well. He had the ability, but he had the professionalism as well to go with it. One game, there's probably one game. So we played Millwall at home, and we had a little bit of a rivalry with Millwall with the Dennis Wise issue, and away fans were banned from going. I think. It was a little rivalry between the club. We beat Millwall at home 4-1, and I scored 2 just before Christmas. Actually, I think it might have been my son's birthday that day as well. So that was a game where I think that was yeah, because Millwall actually had a decent side around that time. I think it was probably the year they got to the cup final. So and I think we were then. It was us and Portsmouth. So that game sticks out. And then we went to Portsmouth away. And it was absolutely throwing it down with rain. It should have been called off, but we won 2-0. And I think I got the first goal actually, and it was a nice sort of shot on the turn. Just little moments like that really stand out, and they were living with me for a long time.
I've got a bit of a question here. It's a bit long-winded. It's from Simon Gimson. Jamie, do you know Simon?
Yes, I do very well. I know what he's on about.
Go on, then you ask it.
He sent me this to ask you. It was on Soccer AM a good few years ago with David Johnson, your ex-striker at Ipswich, and he says you were well known for a love of tractors and farming stuff rather than the usual football cars and everything. Is he lying, or is he actually telling the truth? You preferred your tractors to your cars?
I think you might be stretching his imagination a little bit there. He's a good friend of mine, David Johnson. We played a lot together at Ipswich. We played Forest that season I'm talking about. Actually, we drew 2-2, and he got an equaliser in the last minute, which was sickening at the time because it was obviously a big derby game. But in the second half, he 2-footed me, and it was one of the worst tackles. And he only got a yellow card for it. And I think I went out for something to eat with him that night. And I missed the next game after that. The tackle was that bad. So probably I've never heard that before, but I'm just getting back to that. So David Johnson's not telling the truth, though. It was about 12, 13 years ago. Simon has grown up a little bit, yeah.
I've got a question here. Go on, Jamie.
Sorry, no, you go on, Phil. You ask something.
Well, I was going to say, I've got a question from Dipak. Dipak says, who was one of your favourite teammates at Leicester while you were there? Who did you get on best with, I guess?
Well, I tried to get on with everyone, really. I was that kind of quite a laid-back person, and I still go to Leicester a bit now, actually, and keep in touch with Matt Elliott and a couple of others, which is good. Done a little bit of work, but I'm really close with Brian Dean. We roomed together for a couple of years together whilst he was at the club, and still speak to Brian quite a bit, actually. Brian was a really good, he was coming to, had a great career and sort of coming to the end really, and he gave great service to Leicester. So I was close to Brian. I was close to Robbie. Robbie Savage I was close to him for the first sort of 6 months, but as soon as Robbie leaves, he forgets everybody, and then goes off.
He's more Strictly now, isn't he? Doing his Strictly Come Dancing, he does all that malarkey, doesn't he?
Too busy with his hair.
Yeah.
Jamie, go on. You were going to ask something.
Right. Well, I was going to ask. You mentioned about your highlights and your period of times. I was at one of the games I don't think would have appeared in this. It was when we played Wolves away in October of 2003. We were 3-0 up at half time, and we happened to lose 4-3.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it like being in the dressing room at half time, being 3-0 up, and then all of a sudden at full time losing 4-3? It must have been disaster in the changing rooms, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was probably a turning point to where that sort of team and that manager, etc., that went the other way. We were 3-0 up. I nearly come off at half time as well because I felt my hamstring, and I thought, no, I'm 3-0 up here. We could win this 5 or 6 and might be able to get a couple of goals myself. But it was sickening. It was absolutely sickening. They scored early on, and just momentum, which can happen in football. Molineux can be a good atmosphere, and they just scored 2 quick goals, and that just momentum. We just sat so deep, and it was coming, and it was awful. That was a terrible defeat. Even if we'd have drawn 3-3, you'd have come away thinking we've thrown that away. But it's a good point. But to lose 4-3 was a real, killer. That was.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah,
I was going to say there were some classic matches, but you go back to the point that you are one player that played at Filbert Street and played at the King Power. What's it like to play at Filbert Street? You really got played. The fans are on top of you. The double-decker stands, quite a menacing stand, I suppose, when you're running towards it. And then you've moved to the Walker Stadium at the time. Was there a different vibe between the players going there? Is it a different feel when you come out onto the pitch and see more of a bowl and 3 sides and a couple of cow sheds in front of you?
No, not really. I thought Filbert Street was brilliant as well. It was, the change rooms were lovely. The main stand was as good as any stand, and the pitch was good. The crowd was good. Obviously that one stand opposite, but we never went there. So, I found Filbert Street good, and I think I was the top goal scorer actually overall. I had a real, when I first came, I was in and out of the team with injury. I had some real niggling injuries, but I remember scoring 2 against Chelsea. I think we drew 2-2. We got beat 3-2. Zola might have got a free kick in the last minute. Got a double against Mansfield in the FA Cup. I quite enjoyed Filbert Street really, but like I say, it was because we got relegated, and I think the club was very nervous, thinking we spent a lot of money on this new stadium, this could go horribly wrong, but it actually went the other way.
Yeah, Jamie?
There's a question from Rob Presler. I'm not sure you can get it. It was a few minutes ago. He's actually watching from Equatorial Guinea, wherever that is. God knows where that is. He was saying, who's your favourite strike partner you've played with? I don't think he means just at Leicester. I think he means in general, wherever you've played. Well,
listen, my time at Leicester, I played a lot in midfield, in wide midfield as well, which I occasionally did in my career. Probably played more games there than what I did down the middle. So probably why my goal return could have been higher if I'd have played as a forward. Probably the best spell I had was playing with David Johnson at Ipswich. I think at Leicester, we always had a decent centre forward. Brian Dean, as I mentioned, Paul Dickoff did a good stint. Then had Les Ferdinand. Marcus Bent came along, so all of them were capable on their day. All of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to pick one out really from Leicester. I think it'd be a bit unfair. I think Paul Dickoff had a very good 18 months at the club, where we're on our promotion season and the Premier League season.
Tom.
Yeah, I was going to say. So you come towards the end of your career, and you've gone into coaching now. I think you're coaching at Ipswich Town. Did you know that was the kind of path you were going to go into, management, coaching side of it, or was it just something that happened?
It just happened really. I don't actually coach now. I know it's on my Wikipedia. I've left Ipswich. Left it a couple of years ago. I actually work for Crystal Palace now in their recruitment department. going all over Europe watching players, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I did a little bit of work for Leicester a couple of years ago in a similar role as well. So that's where I'm at in my life at the moment.
So you're currently, is it scouting then for new talent, or is it young talent on the up and come, or is it?
No, it's team level, first team level. So I do a lot of work abroad. It's recruitment departments at Premier League football clubs now are getting very, very big. I think Sean St Ledger does a similar role at Leicester at the moment. So no, that's what I've done for the last sort of 18 months. I really enjoyed it.
I suppose everybody's looking for the next Riyad Mahrez or somebody like that in French League 2, aren't they, James?
They certainly are. So it's not easy to find, but if you find one, like say Riyad it was a brilliant signing from Leicester.
Did you ever think, just bring things on to obviously the Premier League title win for Leicester, James? Could you ever have imagined? I mean, when Ipswich back in the day came close several times as well, back, I'm thinking late 70s, 80s. Did you ever think a club like Ipswich or even a Leicester or somebody like that could go on and maybe upset the apple cart, James?
Not in modern day football, no. I saw a few games at Leicester that season. I was there when Vardy beat Van Nistelrooy's record, and I think they beat Chelsea as well. I think Leicester had some excellent players. You have to give them that. I think what they've done in the last, probably under Nigel Pearson, really, because up until the season before, it was a very similar scenario. The club had sort of got themselves stuck in this yo-yo sort of system. It's exactly the same when I was there, and it was exactly the same when Nigel Pearson was there. They just about managed to stay up in that season before they won the league, didn't they? If they'd have gone down,
nightmare.
Yeah, you wouldn't be talking about Champions League football now, and certainly wouldn't be talking about that. So, what they did do at that time, they sort of were brave, obviously, with the the new ownership at the club, which has been fantastic, and really sad what happened in the end. But they started to get young players, and I think the club always needed that. Needed to invest in some real good young talent that eventually would come through, and when they do come through, really take off. And I think that's probably the sea change at Leicester, really. But that moment, that season was just incredible. You'll never ever see that again in our lifetime.
Well, I think you might in a couple of seasons when Leicester do it again, James.
Not a team that's favourites to go down to win that. It's 1 in 100 years, that is, but it is probably the best footballing, if not sporting, story that's ever been written.
Yeah, Jamie?
Yeah, Mirko's asked a question, the old Dutch fox. He says, do you remember majority of your goals at Leicester, and which one was your favourite one?
I do remember most of them. What was my favourite one? I quite like the one at Portsmouth away, in that when we got promoted, I think it was February time. Portsmouth had a very good side. They beat us to the league that year. I might have been before Christmas. The turn and shot. Got a nice volley at Wolves in my final season. Probably the one at Leeds that got goal of the season.
Yes.
2001, 2002, and that was the time I think Leeds got to semi-finals of the Champions League that year. Last-minute equaliser, which was a good point for us.
Yeah.
Probably, the Leeds one is probably, and every now and again you see it on Premier League years.
You could have said the Grimsby one that no one's seen or remembers you scoring it before. Muzzy scored.
I've got a question here for you, James. This is a bit Leicester related, and obviously with your scouting head on. Often fans think, why do clubs not go down into the non-league in England and look at some of these players? And it was 8 years ago today that Jamie Vardy signed for Leicester. Obviously, Leicester paid a record fee for him. But do you ever feel like the players who didn't make it, everybody's into these 16, 18-year-old kids, even younger now. Do you think clubs should look down sometimes into the non-league?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at, there's a stat at the moment that England's #1 goal scorer and England's #1 goalkeeper, i.e. Nick Pope, who's had the most clean sheets, both come out of non-league. And why clubs, listen, you've got to be brave, and I think sometimes probably clubs stick their nose up at non-league players, but non-league players come into the game with such a hunger. You look at Vardy's. If Vardy would have come through academy, he would not be anywhere near the player he is now. He's just raw, plays on the edge, plays with his heart, and has just got better and better and better. I think Vardy possibly is probably the best striker in the league on his day at the moment.
Yeah, Tom?
I'll say you talk about Vardy. I mean, we've had some gems, and I think the best thing at the moment being a Leicester fan is seeing this young talent, and it's been given a chance. I mean, it's not all English. We can't, Soyuncu's coming to the team after a year he didn't play any football. He's been a gem at the back. You look at Chowdhury, who's breaking into the team now. You got Maddison, Demarai Gray. On his day when he turns up, he could be a very good player, and if he can get some performances, we want to see it. As a scout nowadays, when you're going to look at players, what are you looking for as a player? Is it the hunger, or is there always what can you offer the skill side of things?
Listen, ultimately, you're looking for everything. You're looking for a little bit of technique, a bit of pace, a bit of aggression. Physically, can they do it? You're never going to find, unless you're working for Real Madrid, Barcelona, or you're never going to find the perfect player. So you have to take a chance on some players. And the main thing is, I think if you look at someone like Vardy, he's been given the environment at Leicester to shine, to come through, and it's like the young players coming through at the moment. They've been given the pathway and been given the chance. It's no better than young players if you don't give them a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got two final questions, I think, for you here. Bishop is watching on Periscope. He says, if you could think back to 2003, James, when we went up to the Premier League, did we sign too many players, do you think?
Yes,
Was there an influx?
Yeah, and I think it's a good. Yeah, we did sign too many players and too many old players. We needed young players in the team. We didn't have. We just sold Matt Piper, which was the squad was crying out for players like that, young players, bit of pace, bit of energy, and we didn't. It was just all senior players that probably a little bit injury prone, most of them over 30, and the longevity in that just doesn't last. So probably the dynamics of it was wrong. Okay, Tom.
No, just brilliant. No, thank you for coming on, James. It's been much appreciated to get in. Learn the truth about Robbie Savage finally, and hopefully he didn't take too much money off the house.
No, he should have done. He should have done. I'm still paying for it now, but no. I love Leicester. I had a brilliant time there, and I really, it was a roller coaster, and it was never ever quiet at Leicester, and I still say that to this day. Leicester, for some unknown reasons, always been in the papers, but I thought it was a top club, possibly the biggest club I played for, and at a time in my life where I think I was 25 when I came and left when I was 29, to the peak of my time there. I'd have loved to have played a little bit earlier at the club, under the Martin O'Neill and been around sort of a couple of years ago, but it wouldn't have changed it for anything. Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us, James. It looks like the Premier League's hopefully going to start again. Is that what you feel, James? Should our safety in mind, of course, for players, officials, and everybody. Obviously the Scottish League has wrapped up today. Celtic being crowned. What are your views on trying to get this finished?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And I think opinions are changing every day. I was a little bit, got to be careful here, but I watched the German football at the weekend, and I know there's no crowd, but we've just got to accept that at the moment. But it's brilliant to watch live football. I think there's a game on at the moment that I'll go and watch, and I think when it's your team, sitting at home tonight watching Leicester versus in a tie that matters, because Leicester have got a lot to play for. It's better than nothing. That has to be, and I do think it's as safe as what it can be. I think at the moment there's no place in the world that's 100% safe, but it looks like we're slowly trying to get control of this.
Brilliant. Thanks from all the Leicester fans, James. It's been a pleasure having you on. We really appreciated your time. It was great watching you back in the day, and really interesting to hear what you're up to now as well with the scouting aspect of things.
Thanks a lot. Keep well.
Cheers, James. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. We'll let James go. That was absolutely fantastic. Thanks for joining us, chaps. Another really, really interesting interview. We've had Keith Gillespie on a couple of shows ago, and he's obviously a football agent. James Scowcroft doing the scouting now. Both still heavily involved in the game. So, Jamie, another really interesting one.
We've had a full range we've had the whole lot, haven't we? Gone full circle with everything. Ex-footballers, then doing not a lot, scouting, coaching. We've had the works. We've had different stories from everyone. It's been great, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And on Thursday, we've got Stephen Oakes, who's now coaching out in America. So that should be a different side of it from there.
I remember Stefan Oakes. You remember him, Tom?
Oh my! Stephen Oakes scored a goal in the 5-3, 5-2 win, was it, against Sunderland?
Yes,
Colin Moore got a
free
hat trick
kick.
that day. He clipped the wall and went in. He didn't play lots of games for the club. He was another raw talent that came through with Pipes and Jordan Stewart, I think, around the same kind of era. So it'd be great to have some stories from the Martin O'Neill days as a young player pushing to get into the team.
Brilliant. Thanks, chaps. Thanks for joining us. We'll let you go now.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers all. See you Thursday.
So thanks to Tom, thanks to Jamie for all their input as ever. They're fantastic questions. Thanks for all your questions as well. Don't forget, join us Thursday when we'll be chatting with Steph Oakes, and get your views and get your comments there. If you're watching on, I've got to do the socials. I always think of Chappers around this time. It always says, go and follow us. He couldn't join us tonight, but he's here in spirit. So Chappers says, as ever, go follow Leicester Fan TV. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're even on LinkedIn for you of your own business world. So go and see us on any of those. Follow us on the website, leicesterfantv.com, and stay tuned. Right at the end of this little video, there's some competitions. It is your very, very last chance on the website to enter them. So from me, Phil, keep watching Leicester Fan TV. See you soon. Come on, that's your lot. Time to go.